What's going on, everybody? Mic check, mic check. Let's make sure I'm live this time before I start recording a 15-minute video like I just did with no audio. Lots of fun. So guys, I wanted to do a quick recap video on the Hong Kong protest / Ecuador protest, as some people might not know what's actually going on in this, in the realm of how it affects cryptocurrency. So, I found a little BBC News article that was well written and just kind of concise in the sense of showing what's happening in those regions and kind of why they're important. Okay, so Hong Kong came back under Chinese rule in 1997. Okay, it used to be a British colony that was under a 99-year deal that ended in 97. So it was released or returned successfully, democratically, and through sovereign, treaties back to China. But during that time, Hong Kong had flourished as its own, independent nation, basically. So these protests started back in June, right? And they started because mainland China is trying to tighten its grip on Hong Kong and just really Hong Kong citizens, okay? So here's what it is. In 2047, this deal is for 50 years. So China's going to get Hong Kong back, and it will do that under old school rules, meaning that they won't have the same legal system, they won't have an independent financial system, they won't have an independent anything, a police force, everything. It'll be under Chinese rule in 2047. So right now, I think that Hong Kong citizens, having seen China trying to tighten the noose, realized that this extradition thing was going to be the tip. It was just the beginning of what could really be the stranglehold. Okay, so everybody kind of got together. They knew that this extradition policy wasn't good and banded together to protest it. Now that specific topic turned into many more, because the idea is that it's not just the extradition policy that's the problem, right? We've got a whole flurry of other dirty accusations, okay, if you will, what we've talked about before about the entire Chinese economy being propped up and inflated and printed up through this belief system of the GDP growing at the rates that it did, when in reality they've been funneling money through Hong Kong banks and laundering it that way. So why is Hong Kong important? You can kind of see, because it's their financial foothold in the real world. Okay, Hong Kong banks are legit. They've run and done American business through HK dollars for the last, almost 25 years now. So we're at the point where they've got this great money-making machine that is Hong Kong that they can use to funnel all of their inflated economy through that doesn't really have anything. And that's in jeopardy of being lost because of foreign investments, because of independence thinking, the way of thinking. They don't have that mentality, that cultural loyalty to the mainland like Hong Kong or like a Chinese national in mainland China or Beijing would be, right? So a Hong Kong citizen still is a Chinese citizen, but I would assume, and I can't even speak for him, I'm just completely bro-sciencing this out, but the cultural identity has got to be different than a citizen from Beijing, okay? So why is this important? Why does it matter? Why have we seen huge numbers of Bitcoin purchases through local Hong Kong transactors increasing? Okay, why are people flooding from HK dollars, or really, just worried about HK dollars? And I would be too, because if China's pressuring you and you've got the worry that America's not going to keep feeding you, run to Bitcoin. I get it, so that's why it's important, okay? And the chess pieces are getting moved around, right? We've got a lot of moving parts in the geopolitical space, and why this matters, why Hong Kong matters, why Ecuador matters, how China's interacting with both, how the US is interacting with both. I want to make sure that I've got audio, so if someone's here with me, give me a little mic check, 1 2 1 2 1 2. Mid-Earth Crypto, just make sure. I can edit this part out. I figured out how to do that. I guess I should start doing that before when, I make sure I get the video. Okay, yeah, I got audio. All right, so why does this matter, guys, right? The reason that this is important is because the geopolitical space is changing, right? It's ever changing, and we're involved in it with our cryptocurrency investments, whether you want to believe it or not. Tron is a big actor in the geopolitical space right now. We saw that with the Warren Buffett cancellation. You'll see it again in the future with other things. I'm not sure where. I have a feeling it's going to be with the content creation side and trying to offer up uncensored content to Chinese nationals. Now, who knows? That could be good, it could be bad, but let's shift a little bit our focus to what's happening in Ecuador and why it's important there, and you know, the reasons that matter. So protests are occurring in Ecuador for different reasons right now. We talked about it the other day in our protest talk about how the indigenous population have a lot of power in this socio-economic, or not socio-economic, but just a socio landscape, right? Their blood allows them to do things that normal citizens probably wouldn't get away with. Like if they were to march on the Capitol, normal citizens would be met with riot police. But when it's the indigenous population of maybe 2 or 3 or 5 or 10,000 tribes, it's a lot harder from the optics point of view. You know, it's politically, you have to you can't just riot police a bunch of it, and maybe the indigenous have like, you know, bows and arrows and, you know, spears, and like they start fighting and killing. Like that's not going to be good, right? So they have to tiptoe around this like weird power dynamic that occurs with the indigenous community and first or emerging world nations. I wouldn't say Ecuador is the first world nation. Ecuador is probably like a second to third world. There are definitely third world regions within the country. You go out and there's places that people live off $1 a day. There's definite poverty in the country, and extreme poverty. So I can't say it's a first world for sure, but they have first world cities. Okay, I'd say Cuenca is probably a first world city. I can drink the water, walk on the street safely, go to hospitals if I need to that are going to be quality hospitals, get quality doctors that are trained in, you know, America, Harvard, you know, hospitals. So that is one of those situations where the power struggle is funny because China has got a very good foothold in Ecuador. They have cemented that foothold with the last presidency, Rafael Correa. All right, the deals that he made have still lingered in the, you know, actions of the presidency today. Okay, the current president was considered to be a puppet, but it turns out he was a counter agent, a double agent, because upon gaining control of the country, he ousted his vice president, who was also the hand-picked, you know, right-hand man from his former president. And put him in prison. He's in prison right now. Now, you're going to hear different theories that'll come out about what's going on and this, that, and the other. And Lenin Moreno is the current sitting president. He's claimed that Correa from Belgium, by the way, Correa lives in Belgium and Sweden, I think. He has traveled to Venezuela to visit and meet with President Maduro to organize a coup and overthrow and destabilize the current sitting government in Ecuador. This is because the current sitting government is not playing ball with the prior deals made to China. They've cozied up more to America. The current president has much a better relationship working with the U.S. than China, and that's not a good deal for the deal that the former president made with the Chinese nationals. I mean, right now, there are now Coast Guard, Ecuadorian Coast Guards that patrol the waters where Chinese trawlers were fishing large amounts, large amounts of product. They were just harvesting. They had a mobile harvesting station there that they, you know, one of the boats was captured and seized and controlled, and everyone was put in prison. But there were also 13 other boats out there that were harvesting in this huge harvesting station, and they all moved to Peru, like I said, and did that whole trick where you put the flags up as Russian flags, not Chinese flags, and you go to Peruvian waters, and now you have a new deal with your Peruvian allies. And so the Ecuadorian Coast Guard can't do anything. So right now what's going on in Ecuador is the president has kind of talked to America about possibly receiving troop help, which I think would be a terrible idea. We don't need National Guard troops in Ecuador clashing with indigenous tribes over taxes that are raised through subsidies. I mean, that's crazy. That's not our lane. Let's stay in our lane, you know? But why is it important? Well, it's important because if Ecuador and other banana republics start choosing America over China, okay, if they are like, hey, you know what? When the shit gets going, China sends us money, which we love. We love the money. We want the money. We love the money. But we really like the military support and the stability, okay? Because like when shit gets going and it's wild, these riot vehicles and this equipment and these armored horses and all these non-lethal weapons come from America. They're sending us that stuff. So it's really kind of like a important factor when you're thinking about how chess is being played around the world with these major powerhouse countries, and those countries being Russia, China, and America. And then I would even group the EU as a fourth unit together. The EU kind of moves as one, and combined their power might be equivalent to that of one of China, or maybe a little bit less. But either way, I do want to I want to make one last comment. So right now I'm going to give you some stuff. I don't know if I should do this or not, but I probably will, just because it's super interesting what's happening. So one of my best friends right now is in Ecuador. Actually, she lives in Cuenca. We're all from there, and the idea that Venezuelan people are in Ecuador right now causing unrest with these protests, it seems far-fetched, right? Like, okay, it just sounds like another, crazy claim, yada, yada, yada. But the truth is that there are a ton of Venezuelans in country right now, and they are doing some crazy stuff. Now, she's taking some pictures there. When she's there, sorry for all the cat stuff. I'll edit this out. She's taking some pictures while out in the street, right? And you can kind of see this guy right here, okay? This is a Venezuelan national. How do I know this? Okay. They have different accents, okay? Venezuelans have a way of speaking that are just different, okay? They sound a little bit gangster, a little bit street, a little bit gutter. They have this kind of chop to their words. And to somebody that's lived in Cuenca, right? Somebody that's lived in this city for 12 years now, 10 years, the accents for Cuencanos, for the people that are from there, is very different, okay? They have a pretentious accent almost. It sounds like a better than like, oh, did you, a mí me gusta hablar así, porque they have this like weird little singing thing that they do, and it's kind of annoying to be honest, but you notice it, and you can tell way easily. It's almost as different as somebody who's speaking, hood, and really, really proper British English, okay? Like it's kind of like that. So the idea that they wouldn't be able to notice the difference is crazy. So she tells me that there are a bunch of Venezuelans that are running around with Molotov cocktails, throwing them at the non-lethal vehicles that have like the sound, scatter devices, basically to get people to go away. So it kind of makes me think there is something to the idea that maybe there are Venezuelan gangs that are trying to cause the unrest. And why? Well, because the former president made a deal with his buddy Maduro, who was, they are billionaires together. They were tight like this. When the Panama Papers came out, you could see everything that was in his Rafael Correa's brother had all of his name in $1.5 billion in contracts from Odebrecht, the Brazilian construction company that was basically just paying off all kinds of fake, fraudulent, bribes. It was all a front. It was just a big money grab. So now we're sitting here watching Bitcoin pump in the midst of these nations that are, Ecuador isn't doing it yet because they have the US dollar to back them. But Hong Kong right now is flooding out of HKD. I don't know if they're flooding into USD or other currencies, but I know that the purchasing rates for Bitcoin on the local Bitcoins has gone up. The tick up was crazy. So it just kind of goes in to prove this whole story, this whole idea that people know, the people, we realize that the power is not in the currency, okay? It's really in us, in our belief, in our trust, okay? So the idea that, personally, I feel like all of this protesting in different parts of the world, here and abroad, it's awesome. I get it. I understand the change that you want if it's done correctly. But it could be better achieved sitting at home and making a conscious decision to move your money out of the currency that is being used right now. Just that simple decision as a unit, as a team, everybody saying, hey, you know what? This isn't right. This isn't fair. This is. We're going to do this, and that's how it's going to be. And that conscious movement will take the power away from the... I'm not saying that there aren't going to be bad people that have Bitcoin that would benefit from, that happening. Sure, I'm sure there can be bad characters. But in general, as a whole, as a community, as a hive, if you want to call humans a hive, we're not, but, as a people, I feel like the less corruption that can be possible is going to be better for the little man, and that concept can really catch on to somebody who's feeling disenfranchised because fuel subsidies have gone up, or somebody who's feeling worried about extradition policies to their independent nation because of regime changes. So you can see both examples and how they affect or apply to cryptocurrency and the landscape of today. So I hope that was as good as the first one, guys. I definitely I was frustrated because I did 15 minutes without realizing the mic was off. So if I miss anything, I'll go back over it. But as always, lots of love to you. I want to give a quick rundown for events that I've got coming up in the next 4 weeks. So there will be 5 events in total. USC, it's going to be University of Southern California, Monday, October 14th. There will be a meetup with food and drinks and a presentation I'll be giving for the Trondap space. Right after that, on Tuesday and Wednesday, there's going to be CIS in LA. So if you're there for the conference, please come by. There's going to be a party Tuesday night, I think. Yeah, Tuesday night, Boomtown Brewery. Crypto Wendio is going to be hosting that, sponsored by Tron as well. So free food, free drinks. Looks like Bitcoin is pumping. Then we're going to be coming back here to Atlanta to do the editing for all the footage that we got. October 25th, Georgia State University is going to have a Tron presentation. Then Vegas, that's right. Vegas is going to be Litecoin Summit and World CryptoCon. I'm really looking forward to that, guys. If anyone's going to be there, please hit me up with that. I want to do some kind of video with the spot, like with the influencers on the street. I want to go with like 3 or 4 influencers or locals or just community members and go on the street and interview gamblers on the street, interview people that are there to gamble, and see what they think about possibly owning your own casino. That idea I really like. So, and I think that's going to translate well to real-time gamblers. After World CryptoCon, we got a really cool event in Florida. If you're in Orlando, Florida, or the area close by, please come by November 6th. We're going to be having multiple events all day, but let's just say Oviedo Brewery is where the after party is at night. So we'll have a talk set up for 6 p.m. somewhere. I haven't decided exactly the venue yet. And then the after party will be at Oviedo Brewery Company with sponsored food and drinks there as well. So, guys, as always, lots of love. Zero Attitude from Zero Latitude, Middle of the Earth podcast, round 2.